Deep in the secluded hills of north-central Massachusetts, there's a place called Dunwich. The locals whisper of ancient curses, strange rites, and a bloodline that is anything but human. This is a story that begins with a birth that should never have happened. A goat-like child born to a woman with no known husband, an event so repulsive it sent shivers through an already hardened community. They didn't know it then, but this child would be the key to unleashing a horror that would threaten to cleanse the earth of all human life. This is the story of the Whateleys and the unspeakable thing that lived in their house. The narrative of this terror begins in Dunwich, a forsaken hollow nestled in the heart of Massachusetts. The landscape itself is a character in this story, a place of odd, rounded hills crowned by ancient stone circles, of sinister swamps where night gaunts and bullfrogs pip in a raucous, maddening rhythm. The village is nothing more than a collection of rotting roofs and deserted homes, reeking of a malignant odor of decay. It's a place where the locals whisper of black magic and a devil's breed, a place that seems to lie just outside of our reality. This is the home of the Whateleys, a family whose reputation was as old as the hills themselves. Old Man Whateley, a semi-insane recluse, was known for dabbling in black magic in his youth, and his daughter, Lavinia, an unattractive and misshapen albino, was a pariah even among the superstitious locals. It was on February 2nd, 1913, at 5 a.m., that a new kind of horror was born into the world. The previous night had been filled with intense noises from the hills and the frantic, incessant barking of dogs. Lavinia, with no known husband, gave birth to a son she named Wilbur. She held a strange pride in this dark and goat-like child, spouting prophecies about his powers and future. Old Man Whateley, his mind already half gone, made even more disturbing comments about the child's parentage. "His father ain't of this earth," he'd mutter, and then with a sinister grin, he would add, "Someday a son of Laviny'll be callin' his father's name on top of Sentinel Hill." Wilbur's growth was terrifyingly unnatural. At just 3 months, he had the size and strength of a 1-year-old. By 7 months, he was walking unaided, and at 11 months, he spoke with a premature fluency and intelligence that was deeply unsettling. His features were described by locals as caprine or animalistic: thick lips, sallow and porous skin, coarse hair, and elongated ears. The dogs of Dunwich hated him, and he was forced to carry a pistol to defend himself. The Whateley farmhouse also underwent a disturbing transformation. Old Man Whateley began buying cattle, but his herd never grew. The animals were anemic and seemed to have strange surgical-like wounds. The old man began to make strange repairs to the sealed upper floor of the house. He blocked all the windows and built a wooden ramp leading to a plank door on the 2nd story. An old tool shed, previously sealed, was abandoned, and now a not-of-this-world odor emanated from it. Strange wails and footsteps were heard in the sealed attic above, and one local swore he heard a horse stomping around up there. At every May Eve and Hallowmass, the Whateley family lit bonfires on top of Sentinel Hill. The eerie bangs and booms from the mountains intensified with each ceremony. In 1917, Wilbur, at 4.5 years old but looking like a 15-year-old, became the subject of a local newspaper article that highlighted his precocious nature, his grandfather's black magic, their strange books, and the sealed upper floor of their farmhouse. He even began paying for the cattle with ancient gold coins. By 1923, Wilbur, at the age of 10, had the appearance of a bearded man in his 30s. He and his grandfather began a second round of strange renovations to the farmhouse. They tore down all the partitions and the attic floorboards, creating an immense open void between the ground floor and the roof. The walls seemed to breathe and warp in this new, impossible space. In the spring of 1925, Old Man Whateley noticed the night gaunts chittering under his window and foresaw his own death. On the night of Lammas, Dr. Houghton of Aylesbury was called to the Whateley farmhouse. He found the old man dying. As he lay there, rhythmic noises of lapping or flopping waves came from the vague void above, and a legion of night gaunts chittered in a terrifying, synchronized chorus with the dying man's gasps. Before he died, Old Man Whateley whispered to Wilbur about the thing that was growing faster than him, instructing him to make more room for it. He urged Wilbur to open the gates for Yog-Sothoth with the long chant you'll find on page 751 of the complete edition, and then to set fire to the prison. The fire of this world, he told him, could not burn the creature. He also warned Wilbur to feed the thing regularly, but not to let it grow too large, for if it burst out of them quarters before the gateway to Yog-Sothoth was opened, all would be lost. He emphasized that only them from beyond can make it multiply and work. Only them, the old ones. The noises in the hills and the fire on Sentinel Hill were more intense than ever that night, and the night gaunts made a pandemoniac chittering. The next day, Lavinia Whateley disappeared, never to be seen again. By the summer of 1927, Wilbur, now a fearsome figure, began emptying the ground floor of the farmhouse, tearing down walls, and living in one of the sheds. He seemed concerned, perhaps frightened. In the winter of 1927, Wilbur, now nearly 8 feet tall, with a grotesque, bearded, gargoyle-like appearance, arrived at the Miskatonic University Library. He demanded to see the Latin edition of the Necronomicon of Abdul al-Hazred, as his own copy was incomplete. He was searching for a formula or incantation for Yog-Sothoth on page 751. Dr. Henry Armitage, the head librarian, was a man of immense intellect and courage. He read a terrifying passage from the Necronomicon that described the Old Ones, beings that existed and would exist between the spaces, invisible and dimensionless to humans. Yog-Sothoth, the text said, was the key and the guardian of the gate that connected the spheres. Men could only perceive them by their strange odor or in the twisted features of those they had begotten upon mankind. Armitage, horrified, connected this reading to the mysteries of Dunwich and to the monstrous figure of Wilbur before him. He refused to lend Wilbur the book, realizing the danger the creature represented. Dr. Armitage recognized Wilbur's foul smell as the same he had once caught a hint of near the Whateley farmhouse. On the night of August 3, 1928, Armitage was awakened by the fierce cries of the university's guard dog and a scream that could not come from any being born of Earth. He, Professor Rice, and Dr. Morgan rushed to the library, where they found Wilbur Whateley dying on the floor, mauled by the dog. Nearly 9 feet tall, with a man's hands and head, but the chinless, caprine face of the Whateleys. The rest of its body was a teratological abomination, a chest covered in a reticulated, leathery skin, a back mottled yellow and black like scales. Below the waist, it was covered in coarse black hair, with a score of gray-green tentacles ending in red suckers, rudimentary eyes on its hips, and a purplish, ring-marked trunk in place of a tail. Its blood was a fetid, yellowish-green ichor. The dying creature mumbled fragments of the Necronomicon. Ngai, Ngaha, Bug Shagog, Yaha, Yog Sothoth, Yog Sothoth. The night gaunts outside chittered in anticipation, but when the monster finally expired, its body quickly shrank and disintegrated into a sticky whitish mass, with no skull or bony skeleton remaining. Wilbur's death was only the prelude. His diary, written in an artificial and complex language, was sent to Miskatonic for translation. Armitage, deciphering it, uncovered the terrible truth. In a 1916 entry, a young Wilbur, with the appearance of a 12-year-old, wrote that the thing upstairs was more developed than he had thought, and that it hadn't much of an earthly brain. He mentioned that them from the air couldn't take physical form without human blood, and that the thing upstairs seemed to have the right mold. He spoke of cleansing the earth and his own transfiguration. Armitage realized that the thing was an interdimensional entity that the Whateleys intended to release. It had not been fed since August 2nd, when Wilbur died. On September 9, 1928, the Dunwich horror was finally set free. The night gaunts shrieked and dogs howled. A farmhand found gigantic footprints the size of barrel heads near the Whateley house, which was now all exploded. The creature rampaged through the countryside, leaving behind a trail of destruction, a nauseating stench, and livestock nearly drained of blood. The thing could scale sheer cliffs and leave 30-foot tracks in the brush. The three scholars of Arkham, Armitage, Rice, and Morgan, accompanied by a group of terrified villagers, tracked the creature to Sentinel Hill. As they faced the abomination, it was described as bigger than a barn, all made of twisted ropes, all like a big chicken's egg, with dozens of legs like hogsheads that half closed when it stepped, not solid, all like jelly and made of separate twisted ropes, great bulging eyes all over its body, 10 or 20 mouths or trunks coming out of the sides, big as stovepipes, and all of them waving and opening and closing, all gray, with rings half blue or purple, and God in heaven, that half face at the top. As the men chanted, the night gaunts chittered wildly. The sunlight faded, and a purplish darkness descended. Deep, guttural, non-human words came from the altar stone. Yanai, Yanai, Flufk Kunga, Yog Sothoth. Then the creature shrieked in English. Ya, ha, ya, nga, Hugh, help, father, Yog Sothoth. The thing was gone, divided into what it was originally. It was a force that does not belong to our part of space, and its tiniest fraction was matter. It was a twin brother of Wilbur's, but it looked more like the father than he did. Armitage, having witnessed the horror and its origin, plans to destroy the altar stone and the stone circles with dynamite. He warns that a family like the Whateleys could again open the gates and exterminate the human race. The town of Dunwich still stands, but the scars of that terrible summer remain. The Whateley farmhouse is nothing but a ruin, a monument to an evil that almost consumed the world. Dr. Armitage destroyed the stone circles, but did he truly stop the horror? Or was he merely closing a door that was already wide open? What was the true parentage of Wilbur Whateley's twin, and what was it waiting for? Could there be other dark bloodlines in forgotten places, waiting for the stars to align just right? Leave your theories in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss our next dive into the unknown.